Continuing our deep dives into everything that went wrong with the Star Wars films, we find ourselves now at The Force Awakens, perhaps one of the most divisive films in the entire franchise. Seriously, there are people who think that this film is worse than the prequels, which absolutely blows my mind. Personally, I really like it. I think that it's pretty great, but no film is perfect, and with The Last Jedi coming out, now seemed like a logical time to take a look back at it. So here is what went wrong with The Force Awakens. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell to be notified when we upload fresh content. Before we get too far into this, I just wanted to point out that this film is part of a trilogy, so a few of the problems could be either alleviated or exacerbated by the next two films, including the soon-to-be-released Last Jedi. So with that being said, let's jump right in. So The Force Awakens introduced many new characters to the Star Wars universe, all of whom had their own issues, except for Finn, because Finn's awesome. First up is Poe, who barely does anything in the film. He's there at the beginning, charming the pants off of us while being completely badass, then he disappears, and then he comes back, basically out of nowhere with only a few lines of explanation. Now, I know that this was because he was originally supposed to die in the TIE Fighter crash, but Oscar Isaac was so good as the character that they kept him around, but it still doesn't excuse a ham-fisted explanation that only minorly makes sense. Then there's Rey, and personally I really like Rey as a character. I think there's a lot of potential there. But there is some merit to the argument that she might be a Mary Sue. A Mary Sue is a character within fiction who is idealized or overly perfect, often seen as sort of wish fulfillment or author injection. Rey definitely does seem to fit this mold, as she is inexplicably perfect at basically everything that she's shown doing. Whether it's flying the Millennium Falcon like a seasoned pilot, using the Force with seemingly no training, or even beating Kylo Ren in a lightsaber duel, Rey seems completely unstoppable. However, this is probably going to be something that'll prove to be a plot point in The Last Jedi, so that's a bit less of an issue at this point. Then we get to Kylo. Oh boy. Kylo isn't exactly a great character. He's supposed to be this deeply conflicted, broken sort of person, but in execution, he often just comes across as whiny, which I guess he got from his uncle. There's also another problem with Kylo. When you're revisiting a franchise decades later and trying to create new characters for audiences to care about, one of the tricks that you can use is making a character the child of a previously established one. And personally, I think it's lazy and honestly extremely limiting, forcing a character to fit into a specific mold and tying them to these other people for the entire story arc. And at this point, it's overdone. Even Blade Runner played with the trope. And yeah, I know that the saga films are supposed to be the story of the Skywalkers, but it could have just continued Luke's story. And I mean, if they're gonna go the route that they went, they sort of missed a golden opportunity. For decades before Disney acquired Lucasfilm, the Star Wars universe flourished due to the work of countless artists and developers, who created magnificent works that all fell under the expanded universe, all of which were canon. Once Disney came in though, all of that was wiped out. If it wasn't either a film or TV series, it was no longer a part of the official storyline. From a storytelling standpoint, I understand this move. It freed them up and allowed them to tell their own story without having to worry about being in continuity with some random book that was written 10 plus years ago. But they missed out on a lot of potentially great stories. I mean, if they wanted to stick with the whole idea of a child of Leia and Han going bad, we had that with the story of the Solo twins, Jaina and Jacen Solo. It was a fantastic story arc that has proven to be extremely memorable among fans. Not to mention the many other great stories that could have been fantastic fodder for films. The Yuuzhan Vong War, for instance, would have made an incredible story arc that would have been like nothing that we've seen from Star Wars films before. And yeah, it is obvious that they are taking some inspiration from the expanded universe. I mean, we got Thrawn on Rebels, but it's just not the same. If you ask anyone what the main problem with The Force Awakens was, odds are they'll probably tell you the same thing, that it was way too similar to A New Hope. And honestly, they'd be right. The film does hit a lot of the same beats as the 1977 original. Both feature a young protagonist on a desert planet longing for a better life elsewhere. Both feature a lovable droid that carries with it an important bit of data, and each one has a gigantic, planet-destroying superweapon that the heroes must fly down a trench to destroy. Yeah, it's pretty on the nose there. And I understand that many people argue this was done to ease people into the new trilogy and let them know that this was going to be closer to what they remember from the older films, but they way overcorrected here. It was almost so bad that as I was watching it for the first time, I was basically able to predict a lot of the major plot points of the film, including the death of Han Solo, much like how another father figure / mentor was killed off by the big bad guy in A New Hope. It honestly made the whole thing feel a bit cheap and unoriginal, almost like they were trying to sneak a subtle remake past us, hoping that we wouldn't notice. In the end though, I still think the film was pretty good. If The Last Jedi though hits all the major plot points that Empire Strikes Back had, then I'll riot just a little bit. Like, what's the minimum amount of riot that you can do? Like, just throw a shoe and chant something once? I'll do that. But what did you think went wrong with The Force Awakens, if anything? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're watching this on Facebook, click the link to be taken over to our YouTube channel for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.